All right, so this is chapter 6, section 1, and it's going over chromosomes and meiosis. So the objectives are to identify the components of DNA and describe how information for specifying the traits of an organism is carried in that DNA, and then recognize the significance of meiosis to sexual reproduction. So another key concept is that gametes have half the number of chromosomes that body cells have. And I'll explain more of what each of those words mean in the coming slides. And this right here is a picture of a female egg being fertilized by male sperm, where whenever fertilization happens in a male and a female, there's many sperm that actually reach the egg, but there's only going to be one sperm that's going to succeed in getting through this egg to fertilize that egg, meaning there's not 3 or 4 or 5 sperm that make it through this egg whenever you have the production of a baby. Okay, and so you have body cells and you have gametes. So broadly speaking, there's 2 different types of cells. Your body cells are also going to be called somatic cells. So your body cells are exactly what the word suggests. It's what make up your body. So your skin cells, your muscle cells, your brain cells, your stomach cells, the cells that make up your arteries, your veins. All the cells that make up your body are going to be the body cells, or called somatic cells. And then you also have what are called germ cells, which make up that develop into what are called gametes. So gametes are talking about your egg and your sperm. So 2 types of germ cells, or 2 types of gametes, and they are the egg and the sperm. And the location of your germ cells are going to be in the ovaries for females, where the eggs are located, and then the testes for the males, where the sperm's located. And the gametes are going to have the DNA, they're going to contain the DNA that we pass on during fertilization, during sex, to make offspring. And this is a picture of this is a muscle cell right here, and then this is a picture of one of your gametes for males, a sperm. Just to kind of remind you of what we talk about when we talk about chromosomes. Chromosomes are going to be condensed DNA. So whenever we are trying to package up DNA into our body, we don't have DNA all unwound loosely like this because it wouldn't be able to fit into our cells. Instead, we take our DNA and we wrap it around these orange things called histones. And we do this because we want to get it to fit inside the nucleus of our cell. And then whenever we were talking about protein synthesis a couple weeks back, I mentioned the idea of a gene, which this right here is a gene. And a gene is just a segment of DNA that codes for a protein. Again, for one single protein. And so whenever you zoom in on a gene, your gene is made up of the 4 different nucleotides of DNA, where A is adenine, and it binds with T, or thymine, and G is guanine, and it binds with the C, which is cytosine. And so all the collection of A, C, G, T, all the different nucleotides together, they form almost like a language where they specify the instructions that make a protein. And so you can kind of think of a gene as a recipe in a cookbook, the recipe to make one single protein. And so collectively, the genes make up your DNA, and your DNA is what makes all the proteins, or what code for all the traits that make you who you are. So with that being said, this right here is a picture of what's called a karyotype, a human karyotype. So in the human body, we have 23 pairs of chromosomes. The first 22 chromosomes here, so from 1 to 22, are what are known as your autosomes. And then chromosome pair 23 is actually what are known as your sex chromosomes. So this right here is showing the sex chromosomes, where X and Y refers to a male, and XX, so 2 X's refers to a female. In your body cells have 23 pairs of these chromosomes. So the key word here is pairs, meaning that this is chromosome 1, and in a body cell, one of your somites, or one of your somatic cells, you have a pair. So you have one chromosome here and one chromosome here. One from mom, one from dad. Chromosome 2, you got one from mom, one from dad. And so on, to where you have 23 pairs. A homologous pair is referring to chromosomes that have the same structure. So meaning this chromosome right here and this chromosome right here form a homologous pair because they all have the same genes. Meaning if you look at, so this coloring that you see on these chromosomes, these are different genes that are along all of these chromosomes. And so you'll see that the coloring on chromosome 1 is different from the coloring on chromosome 2, and that's because all along here, chromosome 1 has different genes, or different genes, different sequences of nucleotides than does chromosome 2. Meaning that chromosome 1 has the instructions for different proteins than does chromosome 2, than does chromosome 3. However, within a homologous pair, so whenever within these pairs of chromosomes, you have two instructions for the same protein. So right here and right here, here and right here, are the same gene. They code for the same protein, but the code in that gene is going to be slightly different from mom to dad, or from individual to individual. Okay, so going on. I had said that the body cells have 2 pairs of chromosomes, and what that kind of the fancy word for saying that is you would call them diploid. So diploid, if I get my pen here, whenever there's the idea of the N, so N refers to 23 chromosomes, meaning that it's referring to these 23 chromosomes. When we refer to 23, that's N. But whenever you have 2 copies of a chromosome, you call it 2N, or diploid. Meaning that whenever you have the fertilization of an egg and a sperm during sexual reproduction, so during fertilization, you form the body cells that are diploid, where they have 2 copies. So one N comes from mom, and the other N, to make the 2N, comes from dad. Half from mom, half from dad. And again, you call that diploid, or 2N. Whereas the gametes are haploid. So this haploid is referring to just one N, just a single N. Okay, and the gametes, again, they're the sex cells. They're the eggs and the sperm. So these gametes are going to have 22 of the autosomes and then 1 sex chromosome, meaning there's only one. So if I go over this, so eggs, the eggs from the female, they give an X chromosome. So of the sex chromosomes, you have an X and you have a Y. And for males, the sperm will give either an X or it will give a Y. So whenever you have an egg and a sperm that meet up together, you're either going to get XX, which again was the female, or XY, which is your male. Okay, going on. It's really important that the chromosome number is maintained in animals. If you want to have a healthy animal, you have to have 23 pairs of chromosomes, meaning that the sperm cell and the egg cell each have to have 1 copy each of all 23 of these chromosomes. Because whenever you have some sort of something that happens during pregnancy, or some sort of genetic disorder, what happens is you have something that messes up the number of chromosomes that get transmitted to that, the number of chromosomes either in the egg or in the sperm. Something happens where you're not putting together the right ingredients of chromosomes. And so the key word here with chromosome number is also, we're talking about animals. So animals, so humans, we have 23 chromosomes, whereas plants, they could have more than 2 copies of each chromosome. So animals, so humans are what are called diploid, so 2N. But plants, they could be, 3N or triploid, or 4N, which is a tetraploid, meaning that not all the organisms on the planet have this, have 23 pairs of chromosomes. They could have different numbers of chromosomes, and they can have different pairings of those chromosomes. So comparing mitosis to meiosis, if you remember mitosis is whenever we were taking one of your, so a cell like your body cell, any of your somatic cells, and you divide it to make a genetically identical cell. So in mitosis, you produce genetically identical cells, and again, they're still going to be diploid. There's still going to be that 2N. And mitosis happens throughout an organism's lifetime. So you're always going to be doing mitosis, right? So think of your skin cells. Your skin cells are always going to be dividing themselves because they have a certain shelf life where they have to get replaced. Same with any of your other body cells, like your stomach cells or something. Mitosis also happens in asexual reproduction. So asexual reproduction is referring to things like bacterial cells or your prokaryotic cells, where bacteria don't have sex. They're asexual, they don't have sex, and they do mitosis. Whenever a bacteria cell wants to divide, it just undergoes mitosis, where it makes genetically identical cells that are going to be diploid. They're going to have the same, they wouldn't be diploid, but they're going to have genetically identical cells. So again, mitosis makes more diploid cells. Okay, whereas meiosis makes haploid cells from diploid cells. Meaning that, so in the testes of the male, whenever you're making sperm, you start off with one diploid cell that then undergoes 2 phases of division to make a haploid cell. So notice how you had 2N here, which they didn't draw all the different chromosomes here, but you can see you have 4 here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and at the end product you have 2 chromosomes in each cell. Meaning in humans you would start off with 46, the 46, and then you would end with 23 in each of these cells. So 2N and N. And each of these cells that's produced during meiosis, they are genetically unique. So each sperm that's made, or each egg that's made, is going to be genetically unique to another sperm or another egg. And this only takes place at certain times in an organism's life cycle. So for females actually make all of their eggs that they ever are going to have while they're in their mother's uterus, before they're actually born into the world. Females make all the eggs that they're ever going to have. Males make sperm throughout their lifetime after puberty. So once, part of the puberty process, the main goal of puberty in males is to get to the point where the body can start making that sperm. And that sperm production happens, there does come some point where it stops, but I don't know when exactly it is, but it continues very, very long into old age. And in meiosis, the purpose of this is to prepare egg and sperm cells for sexual reproduction. Okay, and so that's going to do it for 6.1.